All right, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. I've got Randy Lawrence on today. I'm super excited to talk with Randy because he's done so much in real estate, over 1,000 deals, and a lot of multifamily. And I don't have that much experience in multifamily, so super excited to get to talk with him about that. Randy is known as a veteran real estate investor with decades of experience with single and multifamily properties, as well as transformational community leader and church founder. He received a degree in finance with a minor in economics and began his career as a traditional wealth manager. Randy understands finance and investing strategies in the broadest sense. He previously held Series 7 and 65 licenses from the National Association of Securities Dealers as a securities dealer and registered investment advisor. He worked in the money management sector for 15 years and owned his own company, which he sold in 2006. Ultimately, Randy determined that real estate was the ideal investment vehicle for his own portfolio. Kudos on that. And early on, over 16 years ago, he began partnering with other investors to their mutual benefit. Today, Randy oversees a real estate portfolio of $250 million in multifamily assets, is on track to double those holdings in the next 2 years. That's crazy, Randy. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, man. Awesome. What a mouthful right there. Praise the Lord. So, yeah, glad to be on with you. And, hopefully, Lord willing, can bring value to the audience here today and just kind of sharing, my journey. And, hopefully there's some good nuggets and takeaways for folks as they're tracking with you on their journey as well. So
great, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the typical way I like to start the show is just to get to know more about you and your path here into finding real estate and really, what got you interested? What kind of training did you have? Mentorship or anything like that? And then
great stuff. Yeah. So again, just like you said, I was a stockbroker. My degree's in finance, economics. That's what I'm going to do. Bam, right out of college, became a broker, later got my RIA, started my own company, managing money. 99, I bought my first duplex apartment. And it really was, again, you think back 2000, the tech crash, end of the world, what's going to happen to all the computers when they reset, what I mean?
Y2K.
Like, hilarious to even say that now. People are like, what? Were you guys crazy? You lost your mind? But, so you look at like the stock market crashed and tanked there with Y2K. And then again, the tech kind of implosion. And then here's my little duplex apartments just clipping along, making money hand over fist. And so that began to plant a seed, and then as I further explored that, 2003, bought my first small apartment complex and started the private equity company, because really what I saw is that the return that you get in real estate is a much greater kind of beta adjusted or risk adjusted return than what was being managed or achieved in the stock portfolio. So better return, less volatility. And so for me, it was like, a no-brainer for like, hey, I'm going to focus this. Plus, it also was more of a creative passion, and just it engages you more on a holistic level than what I felt the stock portfolio management kind of did. So there was actually a guy at church that I met, became friends with. They owned a couple thousand doors personally, locally in the area where I'm at, kind of in the greater Tampa Bay area, Florida. And so really began to connect with him. Recognized and saw that like that was part of the path of what I wanted to do, because again, like, one, wealth creation, cash flow, money, all those things were inherent with it. And then that was, in that, 2001, 2, 3. And so we started on that journey. And it was probably like right in 2004. Now in Florida, it was like white hot real estate market. I mean, things are just skyrocketing. And so I remember at a Christmas party for the money management company, one of the girls' husbands was there and he's talking real estate. So we're talking, he was flipping like 20 houses at that time, like one time flip going on with all these houses, slated to make like 400 grand. I'm like, holy crap. Here I am making peanuts per se with these little rent checks. And it's like, he's fixing the Q1 the next year, cash 400 grand in sales. And that's, again, it's kind of similar to what it is now. The market is just like that. And so I said, you know what, we really got to look at and dig into this single family flipping thing, because again, we were making money on the apartments, and that was part of the plan. But again, it really wasn't as fast. It wasn't as quick money. So we began doing that in like 4 or 5, and started a couple, and then, started flipping, 3, 4, 5, just started growing that. At the same time, we were adding small rentals or small, 7, 10 unit apartment, that kind of thing, little apartment communities. And, we just cruising along. And then of course, 2007, things started softening. You could kind of feel like there's some shifting sand. And then of course, 2008 just fell off the cliff. Florida, good Lord, Florida just, entire neighborhoods went decimated that, the builder just walked away, and, half the houses went vacant. I mean, it was just a very strange time. So during that time, we were working through that, even with our rentals. Some of those rentals in lesser quality areas got hit. But the single family homes just got crushed. Good Lord, a $300,000 house here in Florida went down to 140, so really what we saw at that time is, again, I again learned a lot of strategic lessons going through those difficult times. One of them was you want to swim with the tide, not against it. And again, like some people, yeah, I'm Superman, I want to be a maverick. And it's like, well, that works well, but it's like, you don't piss into the wind and you don't stand on Superman's cape, old Jim Croce song. It's like, you're just fighting against the tide. And so what I saw in Florida was a tsunami of foreclosures going to come. So we started a short sale company to still continue to focus on those single family homes. We helped, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, because it's just, like 50% of the houses were in foreclosure. It's crazy.
Right.
And so, we went through that. And again, it was about helping people, not just about making money. But then also we began to, we buy the house from the bank for 140, turn around, sell it to, mom and pop homeowner for, whatever, 170. Or even to the hedge funds started coming in, and we just, boom, sell them to them like crazy. And then about 2012 started really rehabbing houses again, because you could now, there's a little more traction in the market, more financing is available. And so we, started selectively choosing the best homes, most profit margin to rehab and sell and all like that. And then also it was probably then too that started focusing back on the apartment scenario, looking at small apartment communities, bought a 20 unit here and a 5 unit there and that kind of thing. Cause, I realized that the house flipping was great, but I also recognized that I wanted, the cash flow and the benefits of the multifamily. And so, we just continued in that process. And one of the things we did really in the single family home is begin to really scale it, from 15, 20, 30 to 50, 60, 70 a year kind of thing with, construction manager, closing manager, just acquisition, just whole built out team, and using process and principle and people to scale that operation. And so, of course, I think we winded the short sale thing down around 14 or something like that. It used to be like about 70, 30 successful, 70% successful, 30% unsuccessful. And then by the time you got to say 14, 15, it tipped the other way, where it's now 70% are unsuccessful, where the bank wants an ungodly number, and it just doesn't make sense.
Right. This could take a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah,
for sure. And that was, that was one of the things I would think it probably was a process and systems refiner. I read the book, E-Myth, right? The great book. And then they even now have a version, E-Myth for real estate. But it's like, I read the book, I don't know, probably 2010, maybe. I'm like, holy crap, I'm the baker, right? Got a $5 million company, and I'm like telling people what to do, and so there was a lacking of really quality process and systems. And so it was through that time and through the short sale thing that we had to create really quality process and systems, because the short sales are so complex, but so we just really marched along with that scaling process. And then I said, side by side to that, began focusing, not focusing in full, but focusing in part on the smaller multifamily. And it was really probably then about 2000, we shifted the short sale company, exclusive rehab, probably 15, 16, just gunning away, blazing in terms of the rehabs. And there was good money in that for sure. but it was probably in like 15 that I, kind of had that epiphany or that reawakening, so to speak, where, my heart of hearts, true desire goes back to, when I early on started off back in the very beginning, the real focus and the real goal was the larger scale multifamily. That's what my original mentor from church, where they had probably 2,500 doors, they owned, multiple larger complexes. Now they started off with smaller stuff like what I did, but they, ended up owning these larger communities. And I just saw the value of that. And, or it was something that resonated, like, what, I'm, like, you kind of recognize God's got a purpose and a calling for everybody. It's like, there's just something in me that I know that's part of what I got to do. And so that really began in 2015. We'd shut down the short sale. The houses are going good, but it's like my wife and I were talking about it, and it's like, that's really the focus. And so we shifted gears. The house business is running really well, people, process, systems. It's just kind of cruising along, so to speak. I probably manage that with about 2 hours a week with our team. We do kind of a L10 meeting on Mondays, 2 hours in that, another hour or two just answering questions if somebody's got some help from me. So it was with that time I really began to focus back on the large scale multifamily, because we'd done a bunch of smaller communities over the years, but it's like really the larger scale had the more appeal. And so that's where, 16 really began to lay the groundwork for it, like proper foundation, getting it really lined up to how we wanted to do it. That's first. A lot of times people, John Maxwell talked about this, many years ago, when I was over in West Palm Beach area with him and a group of other people. It's like, thinking is some of the toughest work you'll do. And it's a lot easier to do than it is to think, just, got an idea, run. And so I spent really a year kind of thinking through the different models of how to go about multifamily, thinking through the different classes, thinking through the socioeconomics of where we're at in this country, thinking through the different investment models for investors to participate, and also interviewing with other friends and mentors and people to take the best of the information, kind of the, Napoleon Hill approach of, a collective mind. And so with that, I was able to then kind of come to a prayerful conclusion, like, this is going to be the focus of what we're focused on, this C+, B-, true affordable housing for regular working Americans. And then here's going to be the multiple, couple of models that we developed for financial investors to participate. And then with that, really began to just focus on that and start executing. Had some good mentorship, of course, no doubt, in the not only back in 2003 and 2000 with the guy from church, but then also at that point in time, 2016, with another guy that had been in the space for about 18 years, and then began really that implementation and began purchasing communities and developing that process. In the same way that we developed scale and process in the single family, we brought scale and process to the multifamily. And so that period we started buying, and here it is today now in 2021 that we own, 20 communities, 2,300 plus doors, 250 million in assets, and, consistently are buying, 5 to 8 communities a year that are just great properties, great deals, with the opportunity for us to go in and create value and impact the residents there in the community, and then impact our investors. And we've had genuinely investors, people that have invested with us for 18 years, that have made double-digit returns in their investment, never lost any capital through, 2008, and then even most recently with the coronavirus craziness. And so that's changed their life. And so that's kind of part of our mission, if you will, at this point, is to impact and transform the lives of the residents that live in the community. Because really, quite frankly, 80% of those people are going to be renters for life. They're making $30,000 to $70,000 a year, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. They're not going to, gravitate too much beyond that. And so that's really kind of the two things that drive us. And we've continued to do the house flipping business. But we're in the process of, kind of that division. We're going to transition out from that altogether this year. So just 100% focused on apartments, kind of going forward. And again, it just, I think, there's a great quote from Solomon that says that there's a time and a season for all things, right? And, so the 18 years of my involvement in the single family has been a great involvement. But it's like this next season of my life is just exclusively going to be on the multifamily.
Nice. I don't even know where to start. It's like so much there. I mean, it's incredible. I hear you on the, moving from the single family into the multifamily just seems more exciting, and also a bigger long-term play, more, passive, wealth creation there than the single family. I mean, the single family flipping can be great for those chunks of cash and everything, but you've got tax issues, and then you've got, work. I mean, it's just something that's got to keep going.
It is definitely, the thing that I've seen the greatest success in that side is development of a machine. You know what I mean? And I mean, like, good Lord, I've flipped houses that I never even saw ever once, right? So I talk with guys and they're like, well, no, that's impossible. It's like, it's impossible because you say it's impossible and you believe it's impossible. Like, I mean, at one time we had operations from Orlando down to Fort Myers, so that's a pretty big swath. If you know Florida, it's like the middle chunk of the state down the Gulf Coast. And, like houses in Orlando, I never even saw them other than just, having systems, Google Drive, Dropbox, photos process. And then, God, years ago, hiring, 2000, whatever it was, 12 or whatever, 13 project manager, construction manager kind of thing. And, developing like, here's the process of how we're going to go through a house. Here's the materials we use. And, being able to do that. So I think the guys that do the best in the renovation thing, one, you learn it and do it yourself, but as you're doing it, you're creating a process for replacement. And, because then now you can really create, yes, it is work. Yes, you've got to keep the machine fed, so to speak. But it is where, you can grow it, and then it begins to free up your time to focus more on the business element of things, and that's where I think, and again, when I started doing that, it was uncomfortable. Like, I used to love running around looking at houses, right? Like, I did. But, I think on some level, the truth is you've got to evolve, right?
Right.
Because times change, and the way things are done maybe now is not the same as 5 years ago. It's like, good Lord, there's, no more buggy whip makers, right? Like, it just, times change. And so I think it's part of a thing that you've got to be willing to make adjustments in your journey to focus on getting the results you want. Because the truth is, like, yes, I enjoyed running around looking at the houses because of the creative aspect. You take this turd and you make these changes and you open this wall up and it becomes this beautiful edifice that then now people come and buy it and live in it. And so they're so great. But like in Florida, hell, it's 100 degrees in August and you're sweating to death. And, so there's certain aspects like, it's not too bad being in the office. So again, I think you got to be willing to make some adjustments on your journey, because if I was still doing that, I'd never be where I'm at today.
Right. And I think you said something before about, being called to do something and making that, because there are some people that really do enjoy that so much that they systematize the other parts of the business so that they can do that one thing. So they can do acquisitions or they can do whatever.
Yeah.
And then as you move, so I want to move from that and go into the multifamily. How do you, especially because you said you talked to so many different people and, people with experience and try to determine what's the route. It took that whole year to figure out. Can you go through and break down some of those key points that you determined during that year of research into how you were going to, now this I know might not be right for everybody, but what did you come up with? What were the key points of what you were looking to target and how you were setting it up?
Yeah, that's great stuff. And Danny, I want to just also affirm what you just said too, though, for listeners to really hear what you said, because it's so powerful. Because like, look, I'm doing a podcast just on Dare to Compare, right? We compare ourselves to other people and don't see often what it really entails or just what the costs are. And then we juxtapose that onto us. And the truth is, it is not everybody's what I'm doing is right for this person, or what this person's doing right for another person. It really is. And sometimes people get jacked up, like, where, hey, if your thing is to really be a creative entrepreneur with doing the houses like that, and man, like, this is what I really love, that's what you're supposed to do. And that's like God's mission for you. You know what I mean? Like, and so again, it's always good to take in information and advice, but you've always got to be true to you, true to like who you're supposed to be. So I just echo that again. So great point. So for me, as I made that transition, I, first and foremost, I talk to people that have experience and are where I want to be, right? Like, that's a critical bellwether right there, and so for anything that you're doing, getting information like this, talking to experts is fantastic. And then when you move into a mentoring capacity where it's like, hey, I want to get advice to help me specifically from this person, is this person doing what I want to do? Have they done successfully what I want to do? Sometimes you don't know what you want to do. It's like you got an idea of what it is, but that's where, again, I talked with different guys. Like, I talked with guys that have been doing the CC plus B minus apartments. I talked with guys that had done, kind of ground up development construction. Talked with guys that were just, more money raiser guys. And, with that, was able to discern the truths of what they really do, what that means, good and bad. And then from that, then be honest about, well, who am I? A lot of times we kind of BS ourselves or God, or, we're being somebody for our spouse or our parents or our perception of what God wants us to be. And the truth is, like, first of all, God knows you, he made you. So like, you ain't kidding him on nothing. Right. And the thing that I came to years ago is like, look, I have to be authentic about what I want, what Randy wants, because I'm going to be in this for the rest of my life. I'm going to be Randy. Right. And so if I'm shucking and jiving myself about what I really want, it's not going to be fulfilling. And that's where I came at those variables from the different mentor people and said, okay, well, what is appealing to me and what's not? And that's where I was able to discern and take in those information pieces, and then also look at the landscape. Now, this has not been done apart from understanding the overall demographics, economics of this country, financial position, and what I believe is what we experience over the next 20 years. Because again, going back to, I'm swimming with the tide, not against it.
Right.
I learned my lesson by getting my face punched in, right? You don't need to do that too many times. And so with that, I was able to discern, at least from my position, like, hey, over the next 20 or 30 years, this is going to become a renter's country. Over the next 20, 30 years, there's going to become a growing class of people renting in that $30,000 to $70,000 a year demographic. Over the next 20 to 30 years, there is an area of neglect that exists in this quality, affordable housing. There's a lot of people that don't do it well. And then also, what's part of God's purpose for me? It's like, I came from nothing, right? Broke home, parents divorced when I was 4 or 5 years old. I thought like powdered milk was like, that's how it was, till I went to a neighbor. I'm like, whoa, what? It comes in a jug? We got to shake it with water. And so part of that background gave me more of a kind of a heart for the person that doesn't. I mean, I've grown successful and God's help, no doubt, but that was in me still of like, okay, I want to try to provide a better result and a better life for the people that maybe don't have as much. They're just, husband's working, making 42K at the distribution center, wife's working at Chili's making 35, and they got 1 or 2 kids. They don't have a lot. But they'd like to have a good place to live, and they don't have a lot of money left over at the end of the month. How can I benefit those people? Those are good people. And so that all kind of came together with me then now saying, okay, this is how we're going to approach it. This makes economic sense, and this is going to be what we're going to run with. And so the result of that is I've been able to run with a direct focus, not looking to the right or the left, staying true to my calling, staying true to my purpose. And that's accelerated the results, where a lot of people kind of jackrabbit around. Try that. Ooh, flat. Oh, this guy's doing this on Instagram. Boom.
Airbnb.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. and
Well, yeah, I love that. I mean, you did the research, you determined the path, you determined that you were going with the flow as far as where everything was going, not
yeah,
against it. And then just started executing, right? Put your head down, started going. So let's go into, you had mentioned a couple times C plus, B minus. Let's get into some of because I'm really curious to learn more. I mean, I have got an
yeah.
idea of what all that means, but for everybody listening as well, like break that down a little bit. How did you choose that range of type of units?
Yeah. So you've got traditional classing A, B, C, and D. Your A class is typically that new construction, maybe depending on the market, $1,800 to $3,000 a month kind of rent, brand new, just built. Your B class oftentimes can be built in the late 80s or 90s, great location, good area, that kind of thing. Your C class is typically built in the 60s, 70s, even could be 80s, just depending on location, operation, condition. And so what I found is that your typical workforce person, the guy that's blue collar, low end, white collar, that 35 to 75, 80K, a lot of times they're landing in the C plus, B minus type property based on the rents. And again, every market's a little bit different, but maybe say those rents are 750, 950, 1,050, something like that in those ranges, depending on the market and the area. And then also what happens is in those categories, a lot of times, it's a good building. It's, maybe decent, but it's just original to when it was built in 77 or 82. Hasn't been updated in, good Lord, 40 years. You know what I mean? So a lot of times their rents are less than what really the market should be paying, because they are also offering an inferior product. And then a lot of times the way that it's managed contributes to that as well too, because they're not really optimizing better quality tenants. They're allowing sub-tier tenants in that maybe are not just working people, but maybe are some problem people and such like that, and so that's where, what I found is those are the people, one, that we can help the most, right? We can take a community that's like a C community and then make it a C plus or a B minus. Maybe the location's not going to become a B location, but the way we operate it will be operated like a B type location, meaning that it's, better care, better attention to detail, better management, better quality of living, so that the person that's living there, now again, maybe say their rent is, fixed up and the community's nice. Now the rent's $995. Well, another place that's a true B location in the same market, 4 miles down the road or whatever, maybe the rent's there is, $1,250. So it's a different, you know what I mean? Like this guy's not necessarily going to go from paying $1,000 to $1,250, but he can benefit from paying $1,050, getting a good quality experience. He's not paying $200 more, and it's not the same kind of maybe lesser quality experience that was going on before, when the property was not managed well. And let's say the rents were $850 or $900. And if somebody says, well, yeah, the rent went up, but yeah, the quality of life went up for the people that are there. And so, yeah, maybe it is in the context of that, there's, 10 or 15 or 20% of the people that are not really qualified to be there. Either one, some of the people got, I don't want to say criminal element, but, they're just not quality working people, right? That's who we appeal to. And then now what we've done is, let's say in a 150 unit community, we've improved the life and the living standards for 150 people there. And so, you're never going to take that place unless, well, never is a strong word, but in most instances, you're not going to take that C property and it's in a C plus environment and make it an A location, because location is location, but what it does is it serves a particular demographic of people that need to be served. Right. I mean, and that's what I've found appealing. And then we've also found a phenomenal investment return in that because of the way that we approach the business.
Well, I like how you did that. I mean, like the whole thought behind all of it is you want good, working people, because I mean, so many things happen when people just don't work. It's like,
For
there's so
sure.
many. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've stayed out of multifamily for all these years is just that thought of, having some people move in that would make it to where the good people would move out, and then you've got a situation, right?
Yeah.
And just something about that whole idea has kept me from it for some reason, thinking I'd rather stick to, single families or duplexes or something a
Mhm.
little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
So how do you, find, is it simply based on the rental rates that you're being able to find these types of properties where you can get, the
Yeah.
good working people into them?
Well, it really is, a number of things. So like when we're looking at the community and bringing tenants in, it's both based on the pricing of it is, we've got to be competitive to the market. But like our goal is to offer a superior product at an equal or lesser price than the competitors. And then also, our goal is for our management team in terms of the property management level to, address and resolve issues quickly, meaning like, the goal is to have, maintenance items addressed within 24 hours, so that people feel heard. And a lot of times what happens is in those communities like that, where you call it that again, C, C plus, B minus, some operators, they don't operate that way. You know what I mean? Like somebody's got a problem with their AC, they call the office and it's like 3-4 days. And look, this guy's still paying rent. That's his home, for God's sakes.
Mhm.
Like I live here in Florida. I don't want to be without AC for 3 days. I mean, like, I'd like the AC goes out. I want to call the AC company and they fix it, so same kind of thing. And so I think that that's part of what we look at trying to be in the markets. Now, as it relates to finding the properties, that's a whole different thing. It's a very competitive environment to be able to acquire properties. And so there's a whole, process, if you will, of working about that, going about that, underwriting them and all like that.
So you're basically, are you looking for ones where you can, you can do the value add, right? The rents are at this amount, so it's, you're selling for this, but we know that we can turn it around and
Yeah.
rent for this, and is that what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Most of the components of the properties we look for have to have some type of value add component, whether it's a management play where the current management's not doing a good job and we can go in and make those changes to operations. Oftentimes that's even coupled together with it's an inferior condition, maybe, or it's original. It doesn't mean that it's run down to it's like a scum hole, but it just, good Lord, it hasn't been updated in 40 years, so it doesn't look that great.
Mhm.
And so we can make improvements there. And then the third component of it is looking at it from the context of, what are the visual appearances that can be done on the exterior of the property. So those are the three elements that we're always looking at. And then what's the current rents versus the proven market rents. And, so we're also too, I'm always looking for what's proven and established, right? I don't want to just guess, hey, I bet you if I did this, I could take and make the rents from 900 to 1,050 when no one in that area's got 1,050. I'm
Mm.
always looking at, here's 3 other properties right around mine and they're all getting 1,050, or at least 2 of them are. And that establishes that that market is served by a better quality product at that price.
Smart. I
Yeah.
like what you said about the visual appearance, because I've seen so many, even recently here in San Antonio, where I see it's like, wow, that place looks just different paint colors.
Oh yeah.
And it just went from drab early 80s dark browns and oranges and stuff to this, bright looking, modern looking
Oh yeah.
place.
Well, and it really is when you think about it. And some people go, oh, well, but it's like you're making it a better quality of experience for that person to live there, right? Like
Right.
you noticed it driving by, how much better do they feel pulling up to their home?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like, I did a video about this earlier on a property we're buying in Tampa near our office. And, it's about like when you pull up to the property as a person renting that's your home. So do you feel proud about it? Or is it like, when you have, you're going to make a meal for your family, or you have guests coming over, are you proud about, coming in and making a meal in your kitchen there in the apartment? a lot of times the answer to that for people is no. And like, what does that say, right? They're not really happy. They're just doing it out of necessity. And I think by being able to make those improvements like that, it really changes the game.
Awesome. So the last part, because we only have a couple minutes left here, I wanted to ask about, especially in the beginning, like when you're just getting started making that transition to be able to buy one of these larger apartment complexes or even mid-range.
Yeah.
How do you put the money together? I mean, how do you do that without the track record, without the experience? I mean, what's your advice for that?
Yeah. So I think a lot of times there's a couple of things. Either one, you can connect together. There's a number of groups out there that, their focus is multifamily education, if you will. And so you can connect together with a more experienced kind of person that's doing it. And you've got to find a way, how can you add value to that person for them to kind of do a partnership, so that you can gain experience. Because a lot of times, like with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, the government agencies, you can't get a loan unless you've already had a loan. So that's a little, tough. And then again, many lenders, even bank lenders, are not real geared up to give you a loan unless they see some kind of experience. So now again, if you've got a lot of single family experience, that can help. And then if you're wanting to go the track, kind of want to do it myself, then you're better off to probably get a smaller community, 10, 15, 30, that kind of thing, where it's a more manageable number. It's less risk by the bank. And you've also got a track record of, you've bought and sold, 100 houses, 200 houses, whatever your numbers are, 50 houses. And so that can be a process. The one thing I would say, though, when you start moving into the multifamily space, it really is a team sport. And you've got to have people that, are part of your team. And whether that's partners or, like in our instance, it's, team members that are employees. And then we also have contractual team members as well. But you're never going to do it alone, right? Like it's too big. And then even too, as you begin to progress, where you start establishing success, then I think you have an ability to bring in other investors to invest with you as well. Like, so that's where maybe you buy a 10-unit deal or a 20-unit deal, and, you can establish their track record of success. And now you buy a 40-unit deal, and it's a little bit more established for people to come in with you. Now, again, the other thing, like I said, though, if you partnered with somebody that's already established, you're accelerating that experience because now you're working together with them. But like, you've got to figure out, how can you add value to this person? Because, I don't know that they necessarily need you more than you need them. So that's where you got to figure out, kind of like the Napoleon Hill thing of like, how can you add value or do more work than you're being paid for, so that you'll ultimately be paid for more than you do.
Right.
Nowadays people, they want it the other way. Like people reach out to me and like, hey man, I'd like to take you to lunch. It's like, well, I appreciate that, but I really don't need lunch. I brought my lunch, I've got a lot of work to do. And they're not really focusing on how to create value. It's really, if the truth be told, it's just about what they want.
Right.
And, so that's the thing you got to figure out. And that takes some thinking,
When it takes conversation, it takes conversation, with other people about what kinds of things does somebody like you need? Well, what are you having to do that you don't want to do?
Yeah.
They could help with.
How can I add value to you? What can I do to help serve your mission? I mean, like what you just said is have a conversation. Good Lord, too many people are like this, right? And they, you know what I mean? They, especially younger folks, get sucked into that thing. They don't know how to have a conversation. Right.
Yeah,
and that's the ticket. So.
Yeah, man, this has been great, Randy. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. And, I've learned quite a bit, and you've really got me pretty interested in looking into doing more of this. So maybe I'll take you to, I was going to tell you to take you to lunch, but I'm kidding. That was a joke. All right. But if anybody listening out there wants to find out more about what you do and how you do it, or get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Yeah, you go right to our website, www.pcpre.net. pcpre.net, and then you can connect with us through there. That's our Prosperity Capital Partners website, and happy to connect together with you and see your journey on investing.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Randy. We'll keep in touch.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much. Have a great day.